My dear students, as we are talking about how to check references, there are some guidelines to obtain information and to release information about your employees and former employers. First, we will talk about guidelines for releasing information. When it comes to releasing work-related information about a former employee, consider the following guidelines by an employer. The first one person or a limited number of persons should have the responsibility of releasing information about former employees. It doesn't mean that number of people are providing information about the former employees and their information are not matching with each other. Obviously, it would create a chaos and create a very critical situation for your companies. So one person or a limited number of persons in a team should need to provide an information about your former employees. These individuals who are providing these information should be trained in matters relating to laws, because employment laws are very important. If someone would sue for the invasion of privacy, obviously it creates a lot of trouble for you. So what kind of laws? Such as those pertaining to invasion of privacy, defamation of a character, and a qualified privilege. So those individuals must need to be trained in terms of laws. Number 2, during exit interviews, tell terminating employees what information will be provided during reference checks. If the employee is being asked to leave, make sure she knows the reason. So during exit interview, you must need to ask from your terminating employees that what kind of information need to be provided to your next employers. Number 3, try to obtain a signed consent form from a terminating employee. When the person is leaving your company, when the person is terminated from your company, then you must need to get a signed consent form. And you must authorizing, and the former employees is authorizing you to provide relevant reference information to the prospective employers. So the consent form, in the consent form, the terminating employees is authorizing you that you are allowed to provide critical information about person to the prospective employers. So that consent form is very much important and it must need to be documented in the file of a terminating employee. Number 4, always tell the truth. Whenever someone is asking about your former employee, always tell the truth and make certain that you have documentation to back it up. So if you are telling a truth, you must have a proper document to back up your truth, because such kind of backup must need to be provided if loss would happen to your company in this area. Number 5, provide factual job-related examples to support your statement. So must need to be based on fact. It should not be subjective. It must need to be an objective job-related information. And whenever you are providing any kind of information, it must need to be documented and must need to be backed up by different kind of documents. Number 6, make certain that the person to whom you are providing reference information has a legitimate and a legal right to it. If the person would not have a legitimate right to seek information, please don't provide information to each and every person who is calling you. Always ensure that the next person has a legitimacy and a legal right to get information about your former employees. My dear student, there are some guidelines for obtaining information. If you are hiring someone and you are checking references for your prospective employees, you must need to follow these guidelines. To increase your chances of obtaining meaningful information about potential employees, consider these guidelines. Conduct all reference checks in a uniform manner. Never single out only women or minorities for reference checks, or follow up on only those applicants who strike you as a suspect. So whenever you need to conduct a reference checks, thoroughly check the references for all the person you are going to hire. Not only check the references for women or for the minorities or for some of the suspects person. So go through the thorough reference checks. If an applicant is ultimately rejected because of a negative recommendation, be prepared to document the job-related reasons of being rejected. If while conducting a reference check, you discover that an applicant has filed an EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity, charges against your former employer, Keep in mind that it is illegal to refuse to employ someone for this reason. If someone has a lawsuit against their former employees with reference to the equal employment opportunity charges, you cannot refuse persons to get a job in your company. So keep in mind it is an illegal. Obtain permission from applicants on application form to contact former employers. So whenever you are going to check a reference for your prospective employees, always get a consent from the persons that you can contact former employers for the further reference checking.